So my father had the gentle lilt of South Carolina on his A's, kept the softness of Charleston on the center of his tongue. He was a uncloseted New York Knicks fan, and he loved to sail. My father was terrible at sailing, could not handle a sunfish beyond the harbor, could not really even get it off the beach. So we mostly would just walk in Riverside Park and look at the other boats. He was a good businessman, but before anything else, my father was my father. He was 5 a.m. hockey practice attendee. He was Sunday morning pancake maker. He was get up at 7 so I can drive both of my kids to school before I even go to work guy. But he was also way too soft-spoken and a bit of a pushover. So on the few instances when my father would actually raise his voice, most of us would do our best to actually pay some kind of attention. On this particular day, the topic at hand was, as usual when my father raised his voice, my lucrative career as a writer, or lack thereof. And see, I had just gotten back from 6 months in India where I'd mostly run away from the fact that my life in New York City felt a lot like a rudderless sailboat. And so here I am living at home without a job at 27, and my dad is just naming careers that he thinks might be good for me, and then I respond with all of the reasons why those careers would not be good for me, and he names another, and I tell him why I am far too talented to do that shit. And so we go back and forth before just separating like prize fighters to our corner of the apartment. And I'm in my room with the door closed when suddenly the door swings open and he says, "Look, Mike, I don't know who you got it from, but I've seen you inspire people, so figure out a way to do it and get paid," and then closes the door. The best part about this conversation is that I won't remember it for several months. Because 3 days later, I get a call. It's a Tuesday morning during the workday, and it's my dad. I don't know a whole lot about business, writer. But I know that good businessmen don't usually call people during the day unless it's about business, and I don't know business. So I pick up. And my dad says pretty plainly, "I just found out I have cancer. And we don't know how bad yet, but I can tell you how bad it is now. I can tell you that the next 3 months are mostly a blur, like blackout blur. Like 4.5 weeks later, I'm putting a fistful of soil on his casket. Like it felt like my whole life was starting to rock in the waves, so I just started reaching out for things to hold on to, and I hold his hand in the hospital as they try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and try and fail 5 times to install a catheter, and I hold his shoulders when he looks up at me and says, "Michael, please tell the nurses to stop trying to keep me alive," and I hold my sister while she cries. I hold myself accountable and stay sober. I hold my family together. I hold a pen in my hand and write a eulogy that everyone wants a copy of, like it's the best thing I've ever written. And then I hold a bag of groceries. I'm walking back to my parents' apartment probably a few weeks after the funeral. I still don't have a job. I still don't want one. I still don't have an apartment, and I still don't want one. And I'm holding this bag of groceries, and I open the door, and something new happens. Something new where I can feel my hand and feel everything from the waist up, but there's nothing from here down. And I hear the thud of the grocery bag before I hear the thud of my shoulder. And I just crumple on the floor of my parents' apartment. There are no tears because I've run out of those. And there's no movement because my heart is too heavy to go anywhere. There's just this grief that is so dark and black that I wish it will swallow me from the inside. But then the most amazing thing happens. It doesn't. And then the second most amazing thing happens. That the next sound I hear is not my own tears, is not my heart pounding, but it's a really familiar song. It's the Backstreet Boys playing on my phone on shuffle in my pocket, and that's when I realize that I might be a sinking ship, but a sinking ship is still a ship no matter where it's going. So if I'm going down, then I might as well dance, because the most important thing was that even though it was 2016, Backstreet was fucking back. So I jumped up and I swayed through the dining room and grand jeté'd my way across the living room, popped and locked in my bedroom until I sat down at my desk, because if there is one true thing in this whole story, it's that my love for writing is older than the ocean itself. So I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote a story that was just like this one, but not this one. And every line was a rung from the hold of a ship up to the deck. And when the sky was black as pitch, I wrote stars into that motherfucker, and I guided my ship home, guided it from New York all the way to a recovery center in Los Angeles, where I met with a group of teen addicts like me and sat in the living room and read some poems. And afterward, a girl named Allie came up to me and she was crying. I said, "Allie, what's up? Why are you crying?" She said, "I just celebrated my first 30 days sober in 6 years." I said, "Allie, how old are you?" She said, 19. I said, "Okay, so why are you crying?" She said, "I used to love to write. I wrote in the margins of books, in textbooks. I wrote on weekends. I wrote in class. I wrote like my life depended on it. And then I started drinking like my life depended on it. And I depended on it." And I said, "Okay, so why are you crying?" She said, "Well, I didn't remember any of that until you came here today. It's like you gave the words back that alcohol had stolen." And I don't know what the metric is for knowing whether or not you've inspired someone. All I know is that when Allie said that, she watched me watch her steal my favorite pen and then walk out of the room. I'm pretty sure my dad saw that too.